The ECB just warned us about what is coming. And guys, this is a very, very big announcement because it is confirming that we are essentially in the middle of a major reset. We're just waiting for the big black swan event, aka the major crash. Now, in this video, I will be talking about that. But also going over a lot more information as well. So with that being said, welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. If we go back in time, and I did include this in a recent video as well, remember what the IMF told us back in November, which was central bank digital currencies can replace cash. This is not the time to turn back. And since then, there's been nothing but major accelerations happening around central bank digital currencies. And even more interesting, on September 20th, we got this update from the IMF themselves: central bank digital currency adoption, inclusive strategies for intermediaries and users. Now, in this, they did mention the fact that CBDC adoption is still slow. We have among the countries that have included central bank digital currency or are conducting large-scale pilots, adoption remains slow and limited due to various challenges such as a lack of public awareness and trust, preference for existing payment methods, and inadequate incentives for intermediaries. Central banks cannot take it for granted that CBDC, once launched, will be adopted and scaled up easily, forming part of the CBDC virtual handbook. This paper aims to encourage policymakers to encourage CBDC adoption early on by arguing that successful CBDC adoption hinges not only on technical readiness and operational robustness, but also on strategic policy and design choices that target end user and intermediary involvement from the outset. So what's crazy about this is they're saying, all right, well, CBDC adoption is still slow, but how can we basically force this upon people and make sure that they are incentivized to accept a CBDC? I find this very interesting. Now, also beyond this, the digital euro. We know that this is on the timeline. We know that this is happening, and they have been working on this. We actually have here from the ECB, we are working with the national central banks of the euro area to look into the possible issuance of a digital currency, or digital euro at this point. It would be a central bank digital currency, an electronic equivalent to cash, and it would complement banknotes and coins, giving people an additional choice about how to pay. Interesting. Now, they do break this down. Now, this, I don't actually have the cookies available for this, but regardless of that, we have what you need to know. What would a digital euro be? They break that down. Why do we need a digital euro? Again, they are more so talking about, an excuse on why they want control, why they want to still retain anchor, as Christine Lagarde would say. We also have how would a digital euro work, and what stage are we in now? Now, this is the preparation phase, which started in November of 2023. It's focusing on further preparing for a potential development of a digital euro. It builds on the findings from our investigation phase. So they're still kind of at that point. Now, if you actually look at the next steps here, they kind of give us a full breakdown of the timeline behind this. So currently speaking, this is all of those major updates. And in fact, in June of this year, June 24th, we have progress on the preparation phase of the digital euro first progress report, which they did give us that. Now, this goes all the way back to 2020 when they really kind of first started to, research this and also even experiment with a CBDC. Now, I know that they were saying by the end of 2025. Now, a lot of people were saying 2028. We don't have an exact timeline when it does get launched. We have progress and the timeline to where we are at now. But beyond that, I do believe that this is going to launch when we least expect it. I think that, every single timeline that we get when it comes to CBDCs, we have to wait until 2028, we have to wait until this time. I think that they're going to accelerate this. I think that we are going to see a major crash that pushes us into a CBDC world. But also over here, we have the Digital Euro Association. Remember this. Guess who's a part of this? We know Ripple is. In fact, they're a gold member of this. And we also have Hedera being a silver member, which I find very interesting. Now, this is just a think tank organization, but it is still very significant. And also, I want to remind you guys that the ECB does not like Bitcoin. No matter how much BlackRock is pushing Bitcoin, Remember that the ECB does not like Bitcoin. Now you might be saying, all right, well, it's because Bitcoin is a major risk to the central banks. It's nonsense. We have Bitcoin has failed to become a global decentralized digital currency because it can't be utilized for financial use cases, instead falling victim to fraud and manipulation, which I think is just a little bit extreme. It's just kind of a ridiculous claim. The recent approval of an ETF doesn't change the fact that Bitcoin is costly, slow, and inconvenient, argues the ECB blog. And if I'm being honest, I'm just going to agree with them here because it is very costly to move around Bitcoin. It's very slow. And yeah, it is inconvenient because you have to go through layer 2 networks. It's just one big headache. I would much rather utilize a digital currency that is very efficient for making payments. Now, I'm not going to say XRP or anything like that. Again, this video isn't about, hey, XRP is going to be doing good. No, like when we think about this, guys, CBDCs are not a good thing. But majority of the general public is too distracted to rise up against CBDCs, which means the only way to really kind of get ahead here is by having some exposure to this plan, investing in digital currencies that have ties back to these central banks, investing into gold and silver as well. But over here we have Ripple Swell 2020, CBDCs driving towards digital. This Ulrich Binsel, he's the same individual that wrote this full breakdown, ETF approval for Bitcoin, the Naked Emperor's new clothes, because again, it's just kind of shining garbage. But over here, we also have from the BIS, this is the CPMI group that Ripple is a part of. Of course, look at who the chair is, Ulrich Binsel. Again, very, very interesting stuff. And this is from the ECB. And this CPMI group around cross-border payments is focused on cross-border payment interoperability with central bank digital currencies and tokenized currencies. But also over here we have the ECB. Now this gets very interesting. It's comparing global economic risk to the 1920s, warns of a recession. Christine Lagarde, the head of the ECB, warns that the global economy faces significant challenges, drawing parallels to the 1920s and the Great Depression. Well, who would know best than Christine Lagarde? Remember, she is a central banker. She knows exactly what happened back in 2008. She highlights a trifecta of disasters, including the pandemic, the war in the Ukraine, and an energy crisis reminiscent of the 1970s. These events have disrupted supply chains, spurred inflation, and stressed economies worldwide. While the ECB's interest rate hikes helped lower inflation in the Eurozone without major job losses, concerns remain over a potential recession signaled by an inverted yield curve in the US. And remember, jobs in the US are very weak at the same exact time that they're cutting rates, trying to prop markets up a little bit more for the election year. You know, I've always said prepare for the worst, because if we don't get the worst, that's okay. We were prepared either way. But as we really kind of look at things, it feels as though we're kind of trying to tape broken glass at this point. It's too far gone, and there's only one path ahead. But this is the path that they want. This is the path that the elites have been planning for so long. Meanwhile, Japan's economy is cautiously recovering, though global uncertainties persist. Lagarde believes today's policymakers are better equipped to address these challenges than their predecessors. Now, what's funny about this, if we go over here to this video, shout out to Subjective Views for this. We have new. Christine Lagarde discusses the use of the digital euro, CBDCs, and digitization or digitalization at the ECB. She also speaks about using DLT to launch digital currencies. This has always been the plan. In 13 out of the 20 member states in the Eurozone, their cross-border payment instruments were on the backbone of international payment systems that have nothing to do with Europe. She illustrates a scenario where something unpleasant could develop and the backbone of the payment system were not so friendly. She asked, aren't we better off also having developed something that can be effective within the entire system? She also said that in the early days, the IMF said yes to developing a cross-border system, but it needed to be interoperable so that the system doesn't continue to be fragmented. Check this out.
You talked about the change that the digital transformation brings to finance. At ECB, you are also quite seriously committed to have a good answer on the question of, do you need a digital euro. Could you tell us a bit about that, and also how do you see the broader discussion globally on CBDCs, digital money, and especially key currencies like the euro embracing a path to digitalization?
You know, that is certainly a cause that I have brought with me from the IMF to the ECB. So if there is blame to be had at some stage, it might come back to this place.
To us, to haunt us.
Yeah. But, you know, it became very clear to me at the time, and when I moved over to Frankfurt, it was no less convincing, that everything was becoming digital. And you think to yourself, well, if everything becomes digital, why would it be that currency, that money, does not become digital? And then you ask yourself, okay, what is money? Number one, it's a public good. Number two, there are two categories. You have central bank money, you have commercial bank money. Aren't we at risk if only the commercial bank operators actually move into the digital world, move into the instant payment, and use technologies, be it DLT or otherwise? Aren't we at risk, we issuers of central bank money, of being undermined, undercut by the commercial bank money? That's point number one. Point number two, and some of my former colleagues will remember, it was also a time when other national central banks, PBOC was one of them, but not the only one, were charging on and were preparing launch of digital currencies that could have cross-border implications. So then you start asking yourself, okay, there is sovereignty associated with money. And aren't we at risk not only of losing the central bank money that I just discussed, but also of just losing your grip on sovereignty money? And if you combine that with the fact that in 13 out of 20 member states in the euro area, the only cross-border payments, and not cross-border, I'll come to that in a second, but payment instruments were on the backbone of international payment systems that had nothing to do with Europe. You think to yourself, this is fine, but just in case something unpleasant develops, and those backbone of payment systems were to not be so friendly, aren't we better off also having developed something that can be effective within the entire system? Third point, and I come to the cross-border aspect. The IMF certainly was one of those in the early days who said yes, but all of that needs to be interoperational. Because if we just go alone and along with setting up those digital currencies, organizing nicely protected, self-sustained payment system with central bank digital money, aren't we at risk of actually dividing even further what we complain is becoming a more fragmented world? So that cross-border operationability is something that is also absolutely necessary. So that's what we're trying to do. It's not an easy, it's not a journey in the park. It's difficult. It takes time, technologically wise, from a governance point of view as well. And we are in that journey, but we will pursue it for the reason that I've just mentioned.
Now, of course they are pursuing this. And you know what's crazy about all of this? Is this is coming at the same exact time that there is major uncertainty around the global financial system. Again, everyone thinks that we avoided the recession. I personally believe that we are right in the middle of it. What these elites have planned is they want to reset the system into a digital format. There was a great video clip that got posted back in October, actually. It's about 49 seconds long. It's Clive Thompson, who was a managing director of a private Swiss bank for about 47 years. Listen closely to what he is mentioning here around a global reset.
Quite likely that if we have a reset, to avoid the risk that there are some parties who are out of pocket in such a way that they can't pay the bills and can't eat, it's quite likely that it will come with some sort of universal basic income, at least in the initial stages. And probably when they kickstart the currency, they'll want to get it widely distributed, the CBDC, after a reset. So it's quite likely that everybody would get some sort of boost to their CBDC wallet to make sure that there's enough currency in circulation, if the only currency in circulation, or the only one which can be used, is now the CBDC. So I do think that would be accompanied by an expansion of the CBDC money supply to cope with the unfortunate cases of people who have lost money.
Now, you know, one thing that he does mention here that's very interesting is universal basic income with debt. I've always talked about CBDCs on this channel. When it comes to incentivizing the general public, all you have to do is really kind of wipe debt. If you incentivize with the idea that we'll wipe your debt if you use this CBDC, majority of the general public will be they'll be on a CBDC immediately, right from that point on. I always like to bring up WorldCoin, right? Because for like roughly $10, you had individuals voluntarily lining up to have their retina scan on chain through a digital ID. This is wild to me. But also devaluing fiat currencies. What if, all right, all of a sudden fiat currencies get devalued down to practically nothing, and the only thing that actually has value is a CBDC? That could also become a reality. All I could say here is you need to prepare for what's happening. Money is changing. Regardless of what anyone is saying, regardless of what anyone is telling you, money is changing. It's the last major thing to go digital. And honestly, I'm surprised that it has taken this long. But we are on this path. We are on this path. And what the elites really have planned around this, it is very scary because it's uncertain on where this is going to lead us to. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because of more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.